So who wins the Gasparilla Bowl? Between the UCF Knights and the Florida Gators. Stay tuned and I'll tell you what I think. What is up, college sports fans, fellow members of Mountaineer Nation? This is Coos and I'm coming to you straight from the hills of wild and wonderful West Virginia. And this is Coos' Corner. Before we get into the topic of the show, I want to ask if you haven't yet, please hit that red subscribe button, especially if you like watching college sports videos nearly every day or at least several times a week. This is a place for you, and especially if you're a West Virginia fan or a Big 12 fan. Please also give me the thumbs up if you like this video. Share it with your college sports loving friends if you don't mind. I'm getting ready to start memberships on my channel, so I ask to be looking out for that, to be able to access exclusive content for members only. There'll be more information on that to come in future videos. Now let's get on with the show. As I break down the UCF Florida game, first let's go look at the odds. ESPN has Florida a 66.8% favorite to win, UCF a 33.2% favorite to win. Florida is minus 6.5 according to Vegas, and the over-under on the game is 55.5. Now let's look at some team stats. First, and I'll throw them up on the screen for you. First, you've got points per game, UCF 32.2, Florida 31.8. Points allowed per game, UCF 25.2, Florida 26.6. Total yards, UCF 400, Florida 470. Yards passing, UCF 211, Florida 261. Yards rushing, UCF 189, Florida 209. Yards allowed, UCF 369, Florida 362. Passing yards allowed, UCF is at 213, Florida is at 209. And rushing yards allowed, UCF is at 156, Florida is at 154. So statistically, these teams are pretty close in a lot of categories. But keep in mind now, we've got to keep in mind UCF did this in the American Conference, in a Group of 5 conference, and Florida did it in the SEC, the hardest conference in the country. So keep that in mind now. So we've got to take all these stats with a grain of salt because competition does matter. But now let's look at some other stats that weren't on this list but that could play a key role in this game. Neither of these teams blow you out of the water with statistics in any category, really. Both are pretty much middle of the road in a lot of categories, including third down efficiency on offense and defense. UCF has allowed 23 sacks on the season. Florida has only given up 12. So that's one area Florida has a major advantage in. As far as defensive sacks, UCF's at 33, Florida's at 34, so they both have about the same amount of sacks on the year as a defense. But Florida's top sack maker, Zach Carter, is going to be out for this game because he's decided to sit out and prepare for the NFL draft. So that could make a difference as far as getting to UCF's quarterback, and we'll touch on that later. You look at touchback percentage on special teams. UCF is at 55%. Florida is at 37%. So Florida's not getting a lot of touchbacks on kickoff. Could that hurt them? Is that going to allow UCF to return some kicks? Time will tell. You look at kickoff returns. This is one area now where UCF has a big advantage, is kickoff returns and kickoffs. Kickoff returns, Florida is 113th nationally in kickoff return yards. And in kickoff return defense, Florida is 110th nationally. So they are near the bottom in both kickoff categories. And punt returns, they're not much better. They're 81st nationally. Punt return defense, they're 98th nationally. So they are not good on special teams as far as covering kicks and returning kicks. Florida struggles in both of those areas. Now, UCF is not that much better. They're about middle of the road in all those categories, in the 60s and 70 range nationally. So they're not a whole lot better, but they have done better this year against the competition they faced anyway in returning kicks and kickoff coverage and punting coverage. Now let's look at some other stats on defense. Interceptions, UCF has 11 on the year. Florida has 9. Tackles for loss, UCF's 7 per game, which is 17th nationally. Florida is at 5.2 a game, which is only 81st nationally. So UCF has done a better job of at causing negative plays. You look at turnover margin, UCF plus 5 on the year, so they're doing really well in that category. Florida minus 8 in turnover margin, not good. Big rise for that is Emory Jones throwing interceptions. He's thrown a lot of interceptions this year, which I'll get to when we talk about the individual stats. And neither team has forced a great amount of turnovers. Like I said, UCF's 11 interceptions, Florida's 9. but it's mainly the turnover margin differential is basically the amount of turnovers each team has committed on their own. Now let's look at some individual player stats. First, let's look at the quarterbacks in this game. You got Mikey Keene for Central Florida. He's a backup. He's a freshman. He's 159 out of 250, 1,586 yards, 16 touchdowns, only 6 interceptions, 64% completion percentage. Now, Keene has been starting because Dillon Gabriel, as most of you know, went out earlier in the season with a season-ending injury. So Keene has had to finish out the rest of the season. Those numbers aren't terrible, but he's not going to set the world on fire either. Mikey Keene is probably not going to win a game for you at this point in his career. Like I said, he's only a freshman. And then for Florida, you've got Emory Jones, 210 out of 310 passing, which is 68% completion, 2,563 yards, 19 touchdowns, but 13 interceptions. So his touchdown-interception ratio is not good at all. He's made way too many mistakes. But Emory Jones is good in a lot of areas. Like his completion percentage isn't terrible. At 68%, pretty good. And he's also the team's leading rusher. Emory Jones has 133 carries for 697 yards and 4 touchdowns, averaging 5.2 yards per carry. So he can not only can he beat you with his arm, he can beat you with his feet too. So even though he throws a lot of interceptions, he can also escape a lot and get out of trouble. So, maybe that kind of offsets the interceptions. And then you look at Johnny Richardson is the leading rusher for UCF. He's got 101 carries, 693 yards, 3 touchdowns, 6.9 yards per carry average. Now, the thing about both of these teams is they both use multiple running backs. With Florida, they're basically running back by committee. Best running back statistically has been Dameon Pierce. He's carried the ball 87 times for 517 yards, 12 touchdowns, average of 5.9 yards per carry. Malik Davis has 85 carries on the season for 401 yards, 4 touchdowns, 4.7 average. And then they've also got Naquan Wright, who's carried the ball 76 times for 326 yards, 1 touchdown, but only a 4.3 average. So obviously Dameon Pierce has been the better performer of the three, but the other guys still get quite a few carries. I'm of the opinion that Dameon Pierce probably needs to get the rock a lot more. Obviously 5.9 yards per carry. He's averaging more than a yard per carry more than the other guys. And he also has 12 touchdowns, and they've only got 5 combined. So he's getting the ball in the end zone a lot more as well. Now you look at Central Florida. Like I said, they use multiple running backs as well. Their primary running back, their starting running back going into the season was Isaiah Bowser, a transfer from Northwestern, but Bowser was injured earlier in the season and has missed the last 3 games. It's unknown whether or not he'll play in this game or not. It's probably doubtful. But if he doesn't, their backup will be Mark Anthony Richards. He's carried the ball 48 times on the year, 309 yards, 5 touchdowns, 6.4 yard average. So he's not bad. Richards has done a good job for UCF this year in backing up Richardson. And then at the wide receiver spot for UCF, you've got Ryan O'Keefe, who's caught the ball 77 times for 727 yards, 6 touchdowns, averaging 9.4 yards per catch. And on the other side, the leading receiver for Florida has been Jacob Copeland. He's only caught 39 passes on the year, but it's for 607 yards and 4 touchdowns for an average of 15.5 yards per reception. But Jacob Copeland has decided to enter the transfer portal, so he will not be playing in this game. So the next best receiver for Florida, Justin Shorter. Shorter has 38 receptions on the year, which is only 1 behind Copeland, but for much less yards. 496 yards, 3 touchdowns, but he does have a 13.1 average, so not bad. So he's also capable of making big plays as well. So I'm of the opinion as well that they need to try to get, in passing situations, get Shorter the football as much as possible. And then they also have a tight end. I think his name's Kamore Gamble. He's caught 30 passes on the year, 399 yards, 4 touchdowns of his own. Also over 13 yards a catch. So Gamble's also dangerous in the passing game for Florida. And I think he could be a difference maker in this game. He could be a matchup nightmare for UCF if they don't have any linebackers that can cover him. And then for UCF, you've got another wide receiver that they have that's dangerous as well is Brandon Johnson. Brandon Johnson's got 38 catches, but for 11 touchdowns. That's a pretty dang good ratio. Every 3 passes he catches goes for a touchdown almost. That's pretty dang good. He's averaging 14.9 yards per reception. Now let's look at the defensive side. Some key players there for UCF first. Their best defensive player is probably big Kat Bryant, the transfer from Auburn. First team All-American Conference performer. 6 sacks on the season. 48 tackles, 14 tackles for loss. 8 QB hurries. He's probably going to play on Sundays. And then you've got linebacker Tatum Bethune, who's got 101 tackles on the year, 54 of those being solo. Also has 2 sacks, a forced fumble, and an interception. So he's just a good all-around player. Just makes noise and is all over the field making plays for the Knights. Key defensive performers for Florida. I said earlier, defensive lineman Zach Carter. He's been their best defensive lineman on the year. He has 11.5 tackles for loss, 8 sacks, 31 tackles, and a forced fumble, but he will not be playing in this game. He's decided, like I said earlier, he's decided to forego the game to prepare for the NFL draft. But other key defensive players for Florida, you've got linebacker Mohamed Diabate. I hope I got that name right. 89 tackles, 34 of those being solo. And then safety Rashad Torrance II, who's intercepted 3 balls on the year and has 81 tackles. He's second on the team in tackles behind Diabate. So, Florida's got some other guys that can make noise on the defensive side of the ball. Now, keys to victory for each team. First, let's look at UCF. UCF needs to come into this game, and I think they will come in highly motivated. They're going to want to take down a team from the mighty SEC. I think any team that plays the SEC in a bowl game, especially a group of 5 team, is going to come in with a chip on their shoulder, and they're going to want to prove something. And I think UCF's going to have to do that in order to have a chance in this game. They're going to have to play with a lot of energy, which goes along with that. As far as schematically, they need to get pressure on Emory Jones, force Emory Jones into some mistakes. Because, as I said earlier, he is prone to throw interceptions. So if UCF can get into the backfield, if Big Cat can get in the backfield and wreak some havoc, maybe force Jones into some mistakes, that'll bode well for the Knights. And then offensively, UCF needs to run the football. It's highly doubtful that a freshman is going to be able to. The freshman quarterback, in my opinion, is probably not going to be able to win this game with his arm. So he's going to have help in the running game to keep them balanced. And then for Florida, they cannot overlook UCF in this game. Just because UCF is a group of 5 team does not mean that they can't be beaten. In Florida, I mean, my gosh, Florida's 6-6. Sure to goodness, they wouldn't overlook anybody. They barely made a bowl game, for crying out loud, but it can happen. And how much were these guys sitting out the game? How much is that going to hurt them? Yet to be seen. They got to take the game seriously. If they come into this game unmotivated, not wanting to play it, UCF will win the game, in my opinion. Schematically, they need to stop the run and force that freshman quarterback to beat them. Because, like I said, I don't know that he can. And then on offense, they need to run the ball and they need to give the rock to Damian Pierce. The guy's statistically been their best running back. I'm not sure why he hasn't carried the ball more. And I think they need to lean on him in this game. That way it'll open things up for Emory Jones. And, of course, Emory Jones needs to get going in the running game as well. Now, Emory Jones has decided to enter the transfer portal. However, he's waiting until after the bowl game. He is playing in the bowl game, at least for now. That's what he's decided to do. Because his backup, Richardson, apparently is injured and won't be available for the game. So if he didn't play, Florida would have been down to the third-string quarterback. And, I'm sure that they don't want that. So he's probably playing in this game to give them a chance. And I think it's honorable that he does that for his team before he leaves and goes elsewhere. Now, my score prediction, my gut feeling in this game, with all the guys being out for Florida's going to have an interim coach. UCF's probably going to come motivated and ready to play. I honestly feel like not only would I take the points in this game, I'm taking UCF to win this game outright, 35-32. That's right. I'm picking UCF to beat Florida in the Gasparilla Bowl, 35-32. Not only do they cover the points, they win outright. And obviously, I picked them to go over the 55.5 by scoring a total of 67 points in the game. I expect both teams to run the ball well in this game, but I just think that UCF's going to make more plays down the stretch. They're going to take the game more serious. I think Florida's got better players and more talent, but I don't think they're going to come with the right amount of motivation. And Gus Malzahn's been here before, which he's coached in big games, versus Florida's interim coach, who probably has not. So I'm going to give them the advantage in the coaching side as well, and that's why I think the motivation factor and the coaching factor wins this game for the Knights. So Knights, I'm picking you to win the game. Don't let the Big 12 down. Let's get it done. All right, let me know in the comment section what you think. Do you think I'm totally off base with my prediction here? Do you think UCF can win the game, or do you not? Do you think Florida wins the game? Let me know, and let me know what your score prediction is in the comments, please. Once again, don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to hit the thumbs up if you like this video. Share it with your friends. There's a link in the description box that'll take you to Fanatics' website. That'll also help me out. You might want to check out this video here if you want more college football content. I appreciate you tuning in. Now cue Country Roads.